So how about those shells, huh? Um, we were talking about something about shells yesterday, and in that conversation, someone brought up that they would like to see a tutorial on how to make custom shells because they have no clue how to. They like shells, they don't know how to make a custom one that kind of resembles the Gigabyte shape mostly, because that's like the most effective one. So, today I'm going to show you two methods on how to do that. We'll start with my favorite, which is like the fully custom one. I always like to start out with a single cube that I'm going to downscale to a sort of pole shape. I'm going to make it thin because by the end of this, this will look like a thick circle in the middle here. Because we're going to be rotating this shape as our base, so to speak. We'll make this Hardox. Let's aim for Hardox on this one. It's way too light. The motor setup inside of here is not representative of what you will need for a heavyweight shell, so please do not take this as like a full-on guide in that respect. It's only about the shell shape. So then, we're up to the difficult part already, which is making the custom shape, which is actually not that hard. So when you're making like a Gigabyte shape, you gotta think that you're angling a flat piece sideways, which means that the tops of the supposed cubes, let me take a quick example here, they are never going to line up properly. I will demonstrate really quickly what I mean. I'm gonna make this, I don't fucking know, 1.5, sure. We'll do it like that, and we'll do it like that, and here we go. Wow, it's a shell, guys. Hold on. Paint it red because that's what we do. And then we put on the mirror, and then it's gonna look like shit, and we'll see in just a second here. That's off. There we go. Now, as you can see, that's never going to look good. The scaling is definitely wrong as well, but you can tell from this pattern that you need a trapezium shape, basically. Like, this is a great example right here. You need not quite a triangle, but you need a square that is wedged on the sides for your side paneling on these Gigabyte-like shells. Because that's just how it is. So for the custom shape, I usually just start off with something like, I don't know, like this. Anything that's vaguely slanted. Oh, that's wrong, actually. There we go. Now it's right. I think? Yeah. So, if you want to be symmetrical, you would place it like this. It doesn't matter, but just for the sake of, showing you guys how to do this. I don't think this is going to line up, but we got to check. Make this 0.1. There we go. Moving on. Shell side. And then we pop it on there. We rotate it. And 0. And we'll make this, I don't know, 0.16, sure. Make this, I don't know, 0.2, 0.1. No, that's way too tiny. We'll go for 1.6. You kind of have to guess these numbers to see if it looks right. Like, we want to get the shell low, but we don't want it so low that it's going to bite the floor. That's my line of reasoning anyway. Then we tilt it. As you can see, now we need it to be quite a bit bigger. Hold on, I'm going to put this to 15 degrees, so it's a perfect 45-degree shell. That's going to recoil other horizontals the hardest, because it's the harshest angle that still benefits you, pretty much. Now, I'm still adding a different custom shape on the bottom here, so this, to me, looks right at the moment. So, we're going to move it out. Something like that, sure. Like it Hardox. Full thickness, because we like a tank. Then we copy this whole assembly. We pop it on, we put it to 0, we move it down 1, and then we turn. As you can see, that's completely off. Let's try a 20-degree angle, so we have a little bit more. As you can see, yeah, it's still way off. So the top of the triangle, not triangle, trapezium shape is too slanted. So we're gonna unslant it a bit. Oh right, edit. Hold on. I think then maybe something like this is already good enough. Because the angle's not that intense. Like that, 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 that. Okay, this is already looking better. Let's actually fiddle with the width a little bit. It's not quite there yet, but it's close. Not quite, not quite. So the problem now is that I believe it needs slightly more slant. Because right now, here they're overlapping, and here there's a gap. So we need slightly more. I think the better option is doing this. Because that's more direct control of the angle, I think. Because there was still space left there, so it's easier to change that. Okay, this is looking promising. Now, this is also why there can't be, like, a single custom shape that just works for this. Just to elaborate on that a little bit. Because it's always going to be fiddling to get this right. Now this time, we have too little slant at the top and too much at the bottom. So we're going to... I believe we're just going to move this out just a little bit more. And I think that might already do it. You have to do this process for making a Gigabyte-like shell. It's just part of the deal, unfortunately. I think this is also going to go off. Oh. Well, definitely like that, yeah. Okay. So what is going wrong here? Let's try to move them out a little bit. Sometimes the shape just isn't going to work the way that you want it to. So you might have to change some stuff around. Like, the further you move it out, the more the slant moves to the bottom, the less the angle matters that we were talking about earlier, if you are following along. So we're going to add some more slant at the bottom again. Keep trying to delete it. I'm trying to hide my shame. I mean, what? We do it like this again, and hopefully this time it'll work out. You can also try making the shell plate taller, as that will decrease the angle of the panels. Yeah, you can already tell this is not going to work. So we're just going to make them a little bit taller. Maybe that'll help. Like I said, this is just part of the deal. You have to do this shit for a Gigabyte-like shell. There is the easier path, but this one looks, in my opinion anyway, always looks a lot better. It's 18. Yeah, as you can see, the slant's still off. So the large problem here is that this top just isn't working out. I'm going to try something else here. Move them. Actually, no, I'm going to try something else. We'll do this anyway, because I think this is the correct decision. Yeah, we'll try decreasing the angle and going for more panels. So we'll go 15. This determines how many shell segments you're going to have, by the way. If you do 20, you have like 18. If you have 15 degrees, I think it's 24. I don't fully remember. It is like 9:30 a.m. on a Sunday, and I'm doing this. We'll make it 0.12, 0.12. This is looking good. Nope, no, it's not. So, as you can see, making these can be a little frustrating, but once you get it, it'll be very gratifying, I promise. Hold on, we're gonna go back real quick. So, yeah, we need more angle at the bottom. So we want to move these guys back in again. What you can also do is change the height like so, and then you just make the custom shape taller. That's another path to doing this, pretty much. Oh, I fucked up. Hold on. There we go. Yeah, you can already tell the slant's going to be slightly off because it gets closer, but I think it's going to be pretty close, so let's take a look. Oh, no, it's not. It's closer than before. Okay. We're getting somewhere. Let's, you always got to figure out what the value is that they're going to be merging along. So something like 30.3. 13.3. looks somewhat correct. We're getting somewhere. So now we have too much slant, which means that I think the play is doing this, because this way you increase the slant more than we have control of just moving the points at the top. As you can tell, the lines are perfect right now, but the panels are too wide. So it's probably going to be slightly off, but I think it's going to be... Nope. I thought it was going to be an acceptable ratio, but unfortunately, it is in fact not an acceptable ratio. So now we have too little slant at the bottom. So we're going to lower the panel even more to increase the slant ever so slightly. Now you got to remember that as you're decreasing height, you're also losing shell height. So keep looking over to the side if it's still... Yeah, this is why. Keep checking to make sure that your shell is still going to be connected. That's very important. This still looks right. The custom shape's going to go around the bottom layer of the shell. So for me, this is still looking fine. I'll try a 1.24. That's not what I meant to tap. It's getting close. It's getting close. I think we have slightly too much. No, we have too little angle. Hold on. So somewhere in between here, we have too little slant. We'll try making it thinner, because that's another way that you can change the slant angle. Because if you make it thinner, that means the custom shape can end up thinner, and you have more control over how thick the panel gets to be. How wide, basically. I think this is jackpot. Yeah, look at that. That is a clean seam going all the way across. So I'm going to make that 3.9, because I always like to make it as nice as possible. I think a 3.8 is actually better. Let's take a look. Okay, that's a little bit too close. Sometimes you just got to know when to say that it is good enough. I typed a 5 there, by the way, in case it got missed. 1385. And there you go. Now you can just spam the rest of the damn thing, which I will do now. And the easiest way to do that is just putting it on the center one. Remember that that's the main one. And then you just start turning it. 1, 2. And then you do it again. And then you put it to 0. And then you move it down 1. And then you do it again. And you repeat this process until you have the full shell. Now, because I decided for a 15-degree angle here, it's going to take a little bit longer. Well, not longer, but one of the shell sections is not going to be mirrored. So you want to remember which one that is so that you don't place things on it that don't end up being mirrored. So right now we have one shell section that is missing. So this one will have no mirroring whatsoever. You got to remember that. And there you go. That's the rough shell shape done now. Now, we make a custom shape, which is a quarter ring piece. You can find this custom shape somewhere in support, I'm pretty sure. I know it by heart now. I've made it so much in the past. There you go. There's a quarter ring. Nice and easy. You can do it along the dots. You don't need any fancy custom shape tomfoolery. You'll be fine. And option 2 is usually the good one. There you go. Quarter ring. And now, this is the main one, because I believe this is the direction. Yeah, okay. So, this is the main stick. We're going to paint it just to make sure that we remember. And this is the stick that is unmirrored. We'll paint this one blue, just to be sure. And then, start mounting the quarter ring. Now, with a shell spinner, it's helpful that it's always centered. Because once you center the shell, so from like this point, it's easier to figure out where to place your quarter ring segments. Because as you can see, these values are going to be the exact same distance from the center. I think we want 0.5 here, something like that. Oh, we do want the minus because it changes the direction of the quarter. Now something like We might need to go a little bigger. This one's a little higher diameter than I usually do. We'll make this 0.2. Okay, so we've moved it out 0.3 here. We'll do 0. Actually, 0.31 looks... No. I think 0.3 looks about right. Then we move it down to C. Well, I don't want to toot my own horn, but that looks pretty much perfect. Here you go. I'm gonna make that Hardox as well. You don't need to make this Hardox. Titanium is a very acceptable material in terms of strength. It's just, I like making things very tanky, so that's up to me. Then you do it again on the other side. We had the value of, oh, it's nice and simple, 0.3 and 0.3. We'll make it not minus. No, that's stupid. We'll make it minus. And then we do minus on this one, so it goes the other way. There we go. And there you have it. That's the shell. That's it. Now, as you can see, this one rides a little bit too... how do you say? It rides maybe a little bit too high. So in this case, I would probably recommend moving the ring down a little bit, making it 0.25. That way you still have a nice seam with your top panels. So make this 0.25 as well. Oh, that's not what I typed. Whoops. We'll fill it in fully. I just type in a way too large number and it usually sorts itself out. Okay, maybe not on 2.5. Maybe I need to use the slider. Yeah, there we go. Now it's good. Okay, so. Yeah, this looks about right. Because you're going to have a little bit of ground clearance from your wheels. You don't want the shell to be riding on the floor because that's just asking for trouble. But there you have it. That's the shell. What you can do additionally, if you don't like the look of these spokes, is you can just put this onto the axle that you mount from. I don't know, make this 0.06, so it's a little bit taller than the spokes. You make this whatever the diameter of the top is, which I think was 7 point something. 7.3 it looks like. And then we make this 7.3. There you go, now the shell is closed. Make it a little bit smaller because it's not looking like it's lining up. Actually, you might need to make it a slightly bigger. Then move it down. Oh, you can also do this. I actually prefer this look. It just looks a little bit more complicated. But if you want a fully enclosed shell, you can just move it up one as well. Or you can move it up a little bit more. That's just decide what you like the look of, basically. I like it when you can see the spokes, because it looks nice. In my opinion. Now, as you can see, this motor setup is not built to spin something that weighs 43 kilograms. So it's going to take a while. But as you can see, moment of inertia is really good. The weight's definitely solid for a shell. A little higher would be nicer, but that's not really a problem. We are just burning through amp hours on this poor little Ampflow A28400 dual. But as you can tell, that is a lot of energy already. It might even need more gearing. Yeah, it does need more gearing. Above 250, you usually have to ask the tournament host if that's okay. If you're planning on entering tournaments, that is. You get 1.25. Let's take a look. See how fast we get to a top speed. This is the part where you just figure out how fast you're going to spin the shell. With the motor setup I have here, this is already way too much in my opinion. But that's not really relevant here, so it's fine. As you can tell, at like normal spin speed, 125 kilojoules is plenty of power. You really don't need more. You can go for it, but you don't need more. Yeah, I think that's the complicated Gigabyte shell tutorial done now. So now we'll do the simple one, which is significantly less interesting in my opinion. But we're going to do it anyway. That's the wrong one. So the thing with this one is, you remember the custom shape that we just made? We make that one again. Normally, it's handy to have a custom shape base so that you can always copy from that. I just don't, because I don't have a reason. So we just make this one again. This is why I know this shape so well. I've made it like a million times. We do that. Actually, no, we go back a step. because this is going to be our shell border this time. I was going a little bit too quick there. So on layer 1, we're actually just going to delete layer 2 first. So, layer 1, this is very thick for a shell. We're going to make this a little bit thinner so it saves some weight. So we're going to move these in 1. We're going to do the same here. You got to measure from this center point. So 1 in is not 1 that direction, it's 1 that direction. So you do 1 that direction, 1 that direction, 1 that direction, and 1 that direction. See, you can tell it's not perfect, but it's good enough because you're barely ever going to see the inside of the shell anyway. I'm going to make this 0.1 because I like to do that. Now, here comes the tricky part. We're going to have to move this top segment in. So we're going to do 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. As you can tell, the angle on that top section in the middle is not right. So we're going to move them in a little bit like this. And that looks good enough to me. So now we move the outside of the shell, 2, and 2, and 2, and 2, and 2, and 2, and you'll never guess it, 2, 1. No, 2, 2. There you go. As you can tell, the angle on this one isn't perfect either. If you really want to get it perfect, you can just fiddle with the angles here. I don't think you're going to get it much better, though. This one looks alright, but you have this weird, like, angle line here. This is also why I least prefer this method. It just looks kind of wonky most of the time. But this is, I would say, the simpler way, because you could tell I was getting a headache from that first one, because of all the angles that you need to figure out first. So, this is quarter shell. And for this one, you don't even really need the spokes, so you can just do a big cylinder here. Make this 0.1 tall. We'll make it 7 diameter. I think that was the last one as well, 7. I would actually recommend making this thinner, like 0.06, because that way you're not wasting as much weight. So like right now it's 3.2 kg. If you make it 0.1, you're wasting quite a lot more. Yeah, as you can tell, that's 2/3 of the weight added from 4mm of hardox. So now we go to the custom shape, we get the quarter shell, and we have the same logic here. The shell is centered in the middle, so we can just look at these values as the same. I think that 0.52, I think, is the one we just had. 0.52. Let's try that on for size and see where we get. It's probably not going to look right, but we will have to find out. Okay, yeah, so because my custom shape is only only 1 unit tall, we're going to have to move this up a little bit. So here's another thing that you got to consider while you are making your custom shape. The more angled you want it to be, the lower it has to be, or the more you have to move this top section inwards. If you want a very angled shell, you have to move this in quite a bit, because right now it's only going to be a 45-degree plane on most sections here, if it is 0.1 tall, but clearly, as you can see, that's not going to happen. So we'll make this 0.245. Okay, so I can just tell that with this custom shape, I need to make it smaller here. Because otherwise it's not going to fit the cylinder that I have made for this. So we're going to move this in. I think this will work. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for the tutorial. No, it's definitely not. Hold on. We're going to move this out a little bit. We're going to make it slightly smaller even. 4, 5. I'm looking so that these segments are not like bumping into each other like you could see here. This is ugly. Something like that. And then what you could do is make the shell a little bit bigger here. Oh, don't forget to turn off scale attached. And don't forget to turn the panel back down to 0.6 if you rescale that way. Now, as you can tell, this is just not a perfect circle shape yet. So we move it out a little bit more. This part's always going to be a little bit off. This is another reason why I don't like this method. It just looks off. But if you really want to make a shell and don't want to put in the effort of the one that I showed previously, then this is a method. So we're going to make this even bigger, because it's not quite lining up properly. There we go. There was a hole here. Now it's no longer there. As you can tell, you can see the lines on the top here. I keep shit-talking this method, and I'm still making the tutorial for it. But this is a way that you can do this. It just doesn't look very nice. So I would highly recommend the first method. I am marketing the better method. What? So we move that in a little bit more. 0.24, 0.24. So there you have your scuffed shell. Hey man, if it works, it works. I really don't think it looks as nice. You're never getting anywhere near the same mass unless you make the sides very thick. This might actually end up too thick, because now it's already 44 kilograms, I think. 46 something. Let's make sure that we gear it again the same way. 0.25. There we go. Spinning it up, it's nearly 50 kg. It has really good moment of inertia, it just looks like shit, in my opinion. As you can tell, we're getting up there. This is, again, plenty of energy in this thing. The only downside is, you will have less pieces welding to each other, so it's probably also a more fragile setup than the other one. That's something to consider while you make these. So, yeah. I think that's where I'm going to leave this tutorial for now for the Gigabyte shell. Maybe I'll make more of, like, the normal shell shape. But I think the Gigabyte one is already the most complex, because if you want to do the first one that I showed, we're just going to move over to it. If you want to do this method, if you want to make it like a straight shell, like a flat plane, all you have to do is just add the panel onto one of these spokes, place it, and then see how wide it has to be to meet the other panels. That's it. The Gigabyte method has all these angles that you have to consider that you need to design around. But yeah, that's it. Hope you guys found this helpful, and I will see you maybe for another one. Don't know. Peace out.